Welcome to the Aegance Offscript Podcast, where we talk to industry leaders who share their stories, insights, and lessons, unfiltered and unscripted. I'm your host, Lawrence, and today we're joined by Steve, who is the CEO of Egis Management Systems Limited. Now, Egis helps organizations achieve and maintain ISO certifications, guiding teams through the practical steps it takes to get audit ready and to stay there. In today's episodes, we're going to unpack Steve's leadership lens, how he thinks about building systems people's will actually use, and turning standards into competitive advantage. Steve, great to have you here. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you for having me, Lawrence.
Now, Steve, I've positioned Egis to a certain degree, but for the sake of the viewers, would you mind giving us a little bit more context around the company, where you're based, and what areas of operations you're focusing on?
Egis Management Systems Limited is a business consultancy firm based out of here of Nairobi. We basically are in the ISO standard space. So entities and even individuals who are in the market for compliance services, we guide them through the process. So basically, we guide them through the implementation process of an ISO standard or ISO standards. And during that particular engagement of the project, we also guide them through the training that is required to not only implement the standard, but also to maintain it after they are certified by a third party, a certification body. So that's in a nutshell what we do. We in the ISO standard space.
Steve, as the CEO, what's the North Star that you've set for Egis this year, and how do you translate that vision into your day-to-day priorities for the team?
Being a fairly young company, we just started operations in January of this year, 2025. We set out with my business partners to basically enable organizational excellence and also bring in this aspect of risk mitigation by businesses, so that as we offer them the ISO consultancy services, they're able to merge the two through the implementation of the ISO standards of interest on their part. But at the same time, also the long-term vision, if I may just go ahead and state that, is to be the preferred partner for long-term organizational excellence by these same entities that we serve. And this will be mainly through the compliance and continual improvement, which are part and parcel of the whole value that we offer to businesses. And to go back to your question, so we lay down very deliberate processes that have taken us through the setting up of the company, of course, coming up with partnerships that will enhance our product and service offering, but at the same time also bring into this market certain especially automation tools that add value to the whole entire implementation process for an ISO standard, which in turn helps the clients to go through this process seamlessly and also do it efficiently, but more importantly, to maintain the standards after certification. You will realize that I emphasize that more often than not, because achieving certification in itself is not the end. Maintaining it is where the real work is. So we aim to guide businesses not just through the implementation process and achieving the certification, but more importantly, to maintain this system so that the long-term organizational transformation and excellence is assured.
And in terms of that long-term vision, Steve, what's the one metric that you're keeping a close eye on that tells you that you are on the right track and you're progressing towards it?
I would say automation. Automation, being as it is that we are living in a world that automation makes virtually all our work easier. We are more productive with automation, and studies have shown that indeed, even with AI as our partner in our various workstations, we are able to do more than we used to do, say, 5-6 years ago. So that is one particular tool that we are looking towards leveraging on, because at the same time, these tools are also being used by our clients. So we want to shift heavily into that, but at the same time also maintain the business model that we have set up for ourselves.
And is that how you are looking to be decisively better than your competitors, looking at automation and leveraging automation?
Yes, yes. The consultancy world, of course, and even through the various posts I see on LinkedIn from various influencers who have, had experience, years of experience in the consulting, the shift, and even we can see in the big consulting firms, work that used to be done by 10 associates is being done by one or two. So automation has crept across the board, and it has affected us as consultants as well. But as we leverage it to enhance the service offering that we offer as Egis Management Systems Limited, we foresee a partnership of sorts between ourselves and our clients to help them, as I mentioned, implement a standard, but more importantly, maintain it, but do it without those inefficiencies that come with an ad hoc or manual way of approaching this whole entire process.
And what would you say has been the most consequential change that you've driven this year, whether that's a process, an offering, or a strategic partnership?
I would say it's the partnership that we had. Of course, we've brought on board various partners from around the world. There's one that is specifically offering training for individuals. And then there's another one that now brings about this automation aspect. We haven't quite explored it as much as we would have wanted to, because the uptake of these particular tools, it's still in its formative stages. But I would say that is the most consequential partnership we've had, because it has also informed our own strategy in terms of, in the short term, perhaps thinking of coming up with something similar, or if not better, for our own local setting here in Africa that can benefit our clients.
And you alluded to training and certification a few moments ago. I'd like to dive into that in a little bit more detail. Are you finding that you are required to evolve your training and certification readiness as the demand shifts?
Not really, because the training component is pretty much set. The standards are reviewed every 5 years, but within that 5-year period before a review is done, nothing much changes. So it's just a matter of bringing the organization and the individuals who work in it up to speed concerning that particular standard or those standards. So it really does not need to really change, apart from the fact that various aspects of that particular training that come along with the changes that are published by ISO, that is what necessitates a slight shift. But the methodology is the same. The how we do it is pretty much the same. Of course, pricing will be different based on our own local uniqueness. So if our partner offers it at a particular price, rather, we will perhaps offer it at a different one if we are to localize it in our own context here in Kenya or Africa.
And if we look internally, you mentioned that Egis is a reasonably young company, and when you set up a new company, you look at systems and processes and the way that you operate internally. Has there been a system within your business that has quietly created the most value for you? It could be, pipeline management, delivery playbooks, audit prep. What is the shining star within the internal workings of Egis?
So I would say, yes, we deliberately set up the company, and even before it was registered, we had laid the groundwork in terms of our own internal policies that we would want to follow. And during that process, it became very clear that the same way that we advise clients is the same way that we would want to work. We would want to literally preach water and drink water, but not preach water and drink wine. So even as we work within those the set SOPs, the policies and the procedures, and then translate it now to the client, we have seen that it has helped us to at least settle in relatively fast into the market and basically be in a position to do the work that we do efficiently and offer the best value for our clients.
What areas of the business are not working well from a systems and processes perspective?
So I would say it's not entirely from a systems or processes perspective, but it's generally the operating environment that we find ourselves in locally. Capital movement is not that it's not flowing that freely. So the delays in payments that we see in the private sector or even in the public sector, we are also affected. So we've had to now effectively just manage our financial resources because being a young company, as we mentioned earlier, we've had to bootstrap the entire framework from ground up. We've not had funding from an investor or investors. So we basically use the resources, the capital that we ourselves have at our disposal, and now the revenues that come through from the sales that we effect to manage the business. So I would say that's the biggest, should I say, headache that we have as a company.
Yeah, and that's a very real headache to have to overcome. But the best way to counter that is obviously to source clients. Where are your best clients coming from today? Is that through direct partner referrals, training cohorts, tenders?
So currently, we are using the approach where we directly reach out to clients, especially the ones that we used to serve before. To just give a little bit of context here, we were part of and parcel of another entity that used to operate locally, but then it ceased operations, and therefore now we came in to provide continuity for these clients that were serviced by our former employer. So we've been reaching out to these businesses individually. We've had a fairly good response, I should say, and therefore that formed the first basis of our client base, as it were. But at the same time, also we've reached out to clients through the exhibitions that are held locally, the expos that we have running every 2-3 weeks or so locally here in Nairobi. And also we've started participating in tenders so that we spread the net of the potential client base that we are looking to reel in. So yeah, those are the various approaches that we've decided to use, and so far we've at least managed to service. They are less than 10, but I would say it's a good start for us, especially for this year.
And which of those channels would you say is the most scalable versus the most profitable?
So the most scalable, I would say it would be the direct outreach to clients, because there is a need, as it is out there. There is a need for organizations to be certified. Most of them want to access international markets. Others are required by law or the tenders that they bid for to be ISO certified. And through the marketing that we have also started to initiate on a very strong note, we are seeing a steady trickle of inquiries that come our way, especially for implementation of the standards. But at the same time, also we want to go big on training, because training would offer a sort of like a very steady pipeline for when it comes to revenue. So training would also be one of the avenues that we would want to really scale up, and this might also turn out to be the most profitable simply because of the frequency with which clients would need to undergo training.
And in terms of the direct outreach approach that you mentioned, are you focusing solely on the East African market, or are you looking further afield?
We are looking everywhere. We are sourcing clients from South Central Africa. So this is Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi. We're also looking to go into DRC. But as it is, of course, most of the clients that we have been reaching out at this particular moment happen to be locally based. They're either here in Nairobi or in Mombasa, and a few in Uganda. So yes, that's the starting point. But of course, our goal is to go big, to just cover the entire continent.
What is your approach when it comes to hiring and retaining consultants or instructors who are able to teach, implement, and influence?
As you know, being in this business, I haven't been in it for decades per se, but from the few years that I've spent, I've developed a network of auditors and assessors who also happen to be part of the partnership pool that we have onboarded. So getting qualified, let me just use that term very deliberately, getting qualified and efficient consultants is not really an issue. Here in Kenya locally, we have a very good pool of consultants for all the various standards, because many of them have undergone very rigorous training, either from IRCA or others from PECB, who happen to be some of the big names in the personnel training aspect of auditors, assessors, and also implementers that we can reach out to. So getting them has not been an issue. And also, since we are a small team at the moment, the few that we have, we're able to retain them as we scale the business slowly.
And in terms of scaling those partnerships, what makes a partner most valuable to you?
I would say value, because before we sign off on any partnership, we look at what value does this bring to the client first. And then now, how do we fit in as the consultants to enhance that value proposition to the client? So that's why of all the partners that we have signed on, and they are not many, there are only 3 at the moment, but they are exceptionally professional. They are world class in terms of what it is they offer. And so with them as partners, it's very easy for a client to see that there is value at the end of it all, be it training. If I'm to have a training as an individual, there is a lot of value in the particular training that I will go through and even the certification that I will get. And when it comes to an entity, a business that is being certified, they see the value in that the client, the partner, the certification body is offering to them.
How do you measure that value? Is it purely based on client feedback, or are there other metrics that you're monitoring?
So for now, it's a primarily qualitative analysis or qualitative metric that we use, because in this world, it's in the ISO standard world, if I may be very very specific. It's all about reputation, and if the partner that you have as a consultant has a very not so good reputation, it diminishes that particular value that you're intending to offer to the client. But if their reputation is without doubt in the minds of those who have already experienced their services, those who have already interacted with them in one way or another, then it's easy to see the same translate to the client. Because at the end of the day, most of our clients, they look at what are people saying out there about this particular partner that Egis has. So that qualitative aspect is what we really look at.
And if we were to freeze Egis right now and analyze the company, what would you keep exactly as it is? What's working really well?
The implementation process, the 6-step approach that we decided to adopt, that one is working very well to a T. The only challenge that we have is time. Sometimes time is not on the side of the client, and neither is it on ours, but I wouldn't change that at all.
And on the flip side of that question, what's repeatedly creating some friction or some drag within the company, and what changes would you make?
I would say client acquisition and client acquisition mainly, because before we have a client sign on the dotted line, it's normally a very it's a process. It's a process because at the end of the day, this client wants to know if I spend X dollars on implementing this standard, what is the return? So quantifying that return and helping the client to really see that this is an investment, not a cost to the business. That communication and just making it all clear to the client, the value behind the entire process or the project. That is what I would want us to perhaps work on, to fine tune, so that we do it better. It's not that it's not working, but I just think there's always room for improvement in this particular respect.
And if we look ahead, Steve, at what's next for Egis, where do you see success in the next 12 to 18 months?
So I think mainly it would be, of course, doing what we do. There's no need to change a lot what we have been doing. We are simply, as we go, fine-tuning what it is that has been working. And we've seen opportunities for improvement in various aspects of our service offering and even how we do the business. But we want to go big on automation, as I had mentioned to you before, because constant feedback from clients indicates that this is a pain point. This is a pain point that many perhaps do not foresee when they start the project. They perhaps have this a vision as to how the whole process will run its course, but reality hits them when we're actually implementing the process and we find ourselves 3 months behind. So when doing a root cause analysis as to what it is that is at the root cause of it all, it's because of this fragmented approach where we use documents spread all over. We have no way of tracking progress when the project is undergoing. The project manager might not have a definite way of assigning roles and seeing who is living up to their responsibility in the team that is implementing the standard. So we see there's a solution, and there's a solution that indeed is being worked on by one of our partners, and it will be a solution that can really come to the aid of the clients. It will primarily serve them as the end users, but it will also make our work easier as the consultants.
You mentioned client requirements. How are those requirements and your competitor positioning evolving in the space?
So for client requirements, we we are seeing a need for efficiency across the board. Efficiency so that they spend as less time as possible in the project, and to get that solution that will enable them to do that is again automation. Yeah. So compliance automation is one big force that is influencing how we are doing our business as Aegis, and even it's the one that is at the forefront in terms of informing the next steps that we will take for the short term and long term.
And then from a competitive standpoint, what is your differentiation story when buyers say, well, everyone does ISO. How do you differentiate yourself?
So primarily it would be the number one, the 6-step approach that we offer. We tweaked that process. The process of implementing an ISO standard is fairly the same, regardless of where you are. The consultant in Australia will pretty much do the same work as the consultant in Brazil. But now we decided to tweak the process slightly so that we add one extra step at the very beginning, because it has been our experience that if we do not get it right at the beginning when engaging the client, then cost overruns in terms of time and the wariness that comes with implementing a project in an organization. These are very real consequences of not getting it right at the very beginning. So we've purposely adopted that 6-step approach. It's there on our website if the viewer wants to see what exactly it is all about. And I'd be happy to elaborate them these steps further on a one-on-one basis so that they see exactly what it means for them.
So, Steve, as the CEO of Egis, you're obviously giving the company strategic direction and you are the leader. What is your decision cadence? Do you like to focus on fast experiments, or do you prefer to have a sort of careful consensus approach?
I prefer consensus. We are constantly communicating with my operations lead and the CFO to just see what is the best way of doing this. What value would it add to the client? What will their involvement be? How will they benefit from this? I always strive to reach a consensus. I've seen it's the cross-fertilization of ideas is always better, at least from how I've experienced life and even business, rather than perhaps an authoritarian, quote unquote, approach to the process.
Yeah, absolutely. The authoritarian approach often falls quite short when it comes to smaller, more agile teams. Are there any leadership habits that you could give to our viewers that have most improved the company performance?
So I think I would mention perhaps two: collaboration. Collaboration in the sense that as it is, being a small entity and still getting our footing in the industry and in business generally, we've had to work very closely together because someone is an expert in that, another one is an expert in that, and another is an expert in something else. But the collaboration has worked to our advantage. At least that's what we've seen so far, and it's one thing that perhaps any leader out there would want to consider. And then the agility to sort of pivot if one thing is not working, we quickly switch on to another and see after having considered, of course, a very assessing the risks with that other process to see if it will work, then we adopt it rather than perhaps insisting on a course that is not that will not turn out well either for the client or even ourselves. So I would urge anyone out there who's a leader in any organization to be agile. Of course, the world we live in is very unpredictable, and so agility comes very sharply into focus. And then collaborate with your peers, with your juniors, with your partners, and see how it all works out for you.
Yeah, that's certainly some sound advice. Steve, if you look back at the Aegis journey this year, it's been a short journey, but I'm sure there are many lessons that you've learned along the way. What has surprised you most?
Communication. Communication is, I think, it's at the bedrock of any business relationship, and also internally as an organization. If our communication patterns and if our communication is really not on point, we end up frustrating each other, and that has been my experience. That I always need, and even my client or my partner, I see there's a need for us to communicate clearly. Clarity in communication helps a very big deal in terms of the entire business process execution. If you're marketing, if you're selling, if you're servicing a client, clear communication. That's one thing that has really come sharply into focus over the short period of time that Aegis has been in existence.
And they often say that hindsight is best sight. Is there anything that you would have done earlier if you could do it all over again? And is there anything that you would not do again?
Yes, one thing that I would have done earlier is to there are certain resources that enhance our service offering. I just wish I could have foreseen the need to develop these resources earlier on and offer them as part of what we offer as Aegis. But then again, I'm also realistic in terms of seeing that it's a gradual improvement and a gradual process that takes you from point A to B and then C all the way to D and E. So yes, if I had the means to do so, I would have come up with these resources earlier. And something that I will not have done is to wait. Sometimes one has to wait for a partner to execute one or two things, or the client to do one or two things, or a colleague to do one thing. But at times, taking a decisive action and moving along, moving the process along. I've seen it's one thing that perhaps I would have done differently. So in some respects, I waited on some things to happen rather than doing something so that now whatever results from it is not entirely influenced by what another entity or another person would do. So those two.
And if we look at your vision beyond the business, what's the bigger mission that keeps you invested in the work?
For me personally, it's just to see that a client has achieved the objectives that they had, and that we as Aegis have managed to help them achieve that objective. So that's why, for me, feedback from clients is always appreciated, because it helps me see the bigger picture. It's not all about perhaps in our case getting a certificate. There is more to it than that. There is a satisfaction that comes with completing a project and in the case of the client, maintaining the management system post certification. So that for me is what keeps me going, ensuring that I have a client who is satisfied.
And Steve, for our viewers and listeners who want to follow you, reach out to you, and connect with you, where's the best place for them to do that?
The easiest way to reach me is through LinkedIn, of course. So you'll find me, Steve Wakhungu, ISO Standards Consultant. you'll see the posts that I've had over the years, and also Egis Management Systems Limited, how we are trying to educate the masses so that we demystify this animal that is called ISO and ISO standards. So you can reach out to me. You can inbox me, and also find me on steve.wakhungu@egis.africa. That is my email address. And let's connect. Let's converse. Let's explore the solutions that are out there, and talk standards.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Aegance Offscript Podcast today, Steve. It's been a really fascinating conversation, and for giving us an insight into Egis Management Systems Limited. I wish you and the team all the best, and hope that you continue to grow from strength to strength as you tackle the challenges of the local market and beyond into Africa.
Thank you, Lawrence, for having us, for having me. We as Egis are privileged. I, as Steve, am also very much appreciative of the time that we've had, and I hope the listeners have learned one or two things that is of benefit to them.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everyone.